Koons here. Sand Mountain Church, I guess we call it now. Sorry, got some pepper. And I'm going to be talking about some pro-life issues that we've identified through the discipline, and elaborate on those a little bit tonight.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Mark, for this opportunity to address this group on the subject of Pro-Life Today. You asked that we extricate political discussion from these presentations. I will do my best to present this topic as objectively as I can. We are living in a time of great political turmoil over many issues, including the sanctity of life. We're in the midst of a polarizing election cycle. There are contentious Supreme Court confirmation hearings going on even now. There are protests, riots, and pandemonium going on throughout our country where lives have been lost. Police officers' lives are being snuffed out. We're in the midst of a highly politicized pandemic that has taken the lives of 1 million persons, over 1 million persons worldwide, especially among the most vulnerable of us. So any discussion of the sanctity of life is fraught with political undertones, but I'll do my best. The discipline of the Free Methodist Church identifies 3 general areas under the sanctity of life bioethics umbrella. Number 1 is reproductive technology. Number 2 is abortion. Number 3 is euthanasia. There's also a 4th paragraph in there that's kind of a bucket for the future that addresses bioethics issues that may arise or will arise due to advances in medicine and science. The introductory paragraphs in paragraph section 3222 of the discipline outline the guiding principles upon which our understanding of the sanctity of life must be conditioned. Number 1 is the sovereignty of God. Number 2, the inherent value of human life. Number 3, God's promise to be with us throughout all of the stages of life. And 4, that this life is not our final destiny. So as we consider what it means to be pro-life today, I hope we will also allow these principles to be our guiding light. Now, in lieu of time, I'm going to address number 2 first, abortion, and then if I have time, I'll come back and look at euthanasia and reproductive technology. But I will make these, I'll send this file with my manuscript and all the footnotes to Superintendent Mark, and he'll put it on the file, or on the page. So let's talk about abortion. What is the state of pro-life today with regard to abortion? I want to read the following Facebook post from about 1 month ago, written by a friend of mine and a former FAA colleague. He turned minister in retirement. And this is what he wrote, and I responded to it, or to one of the comments in his, didn't respond to him specifically, but just to be clear, he writes, I am adamantly pro-life. Life is God's most precious gift to man, closely followed by redeemed life. As a man gifted with life and blessed with redeemed life, I value all life from the womb to the tomb. No segment of life is more important than any other part of life. It's all precious. So far, I'm good with that. He goes on to say, I am not a single issue voter. I stand by my general views on pro-life and the importance of pro-life. Judicial reform is an element of life. One drug-related felony should not imprison you twice. Quality education and job opportunity, not just college, is another element of life. Living wage, another. Equitable taxation, another. Climate, another. Medical access, another. All important. I never said I was anti-abortion. I said I was pro-life. The two are not mutually exclusive. And I would submit to you that that's kind of the state of pro-life today. And I'll go on here, and I have seen other instances of this kind of perspective coming from some very surprising sources, some you may know. I see two things here that I struggle with. My first is the attempt to obfuscate from the heart of the matter by linking any number of other issues to the pro-life banner. You see it in the above post, you see it in a number of other posts, mostly political ones at this juncture. I see these, like I said, as smoke screens or ways to diffuse from the main thing. And I'll refer you at this point to Scott Klusendorf, an excellent pro-life apologist. His Crossway interview, I have it footnoted here, "The Heart of the Abortion Debate," is a good starting point on how to understand the main pro-life argument. If you need to hear that same argument from a female, then you can Google Stephanie Gray, a Canadian apologist. The second thing I struggle with is also in the aforementioned post. Reggie closes by saying, "I never said I was anti-abortion. I said I was pro-life. The two are not mutually exclusive." Here's the pro-life syllogism offered by Klusendorf. Premise one, it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. Premise two, abortion intentionally kills an innocent human being. Conclusion, therefore, abortion is wrong. Francis Beckwith, in his book, Politically Correct Death, I recommend this book. It's backwards on there, but this is a book that I've had in my library. When it burned down, I found another copy online for about $8. And he gives a slightly more sophisticated argument. Number one, the unborn entity from the moment of conception is fully human. Two, it is prima facie wrong to kill an entity which is fully human. Three, almost every act of abortion is intended to kill the unborn entity, an entity which is fully human. Four, therefore, almost every act of abortion is prima facie wrong. And although I lean more toward the abolitionist point of view, our discipline leans more into Beckwith's argument, to wit, this is right out of the discipline, induced abortion is morally unjustifiable except for the purpose of saving the life of a pregnant woman, but only after the deliberation and counsel of spiritual and medical advisors. A difficult conundrum we find ourselves in. Even among us evangelicals, we find dissension within the ranks. A Pew Research study published in April confirms this thought. I quote, "Abortion remains a contentious issue among U.S. Christians, but when millions of..." That's my alarm, I gotta quit pretty soon. "But when millions of churchgoers file into the pews each week, what do they really hear? A new Pew Research Center analysis finds, and this was just done in April of this year, that just 4% of sermons shared on U.S. church websites in the spring of 2019 discussed abortion even once. And when they did, it was rarely mentioned repeatedly. Still, pastors who broached the topic were nearly unanimous in their opposition. So in my estimation, the pro-life ranks today have been breached. There are even some within the evangelical community that are breaking ranks. The battle for the preborn is ongoing, although I think tactically our efforts must not solely rely on the government or the courts. That is not to say we wouldn't welcome any inroads in reducing the present Holocaust. As a church, we must redouble our efforts in joining with those organizations whose aim it is to change hearts and minds, to change the my body, my choice mentality, to re-educate, as it were, young people about the true nature of the unborn entity that is fully human, even if it is not fully developed. In the paper that I will submit, there are some comments about reproductive technology and the conception when life begins. And in euthanasia, I talk a little bit about developing a theology of suffering that I think we haven't preached on loud enough or often enough, and helping our people develop a theology of suffering and attempting to end the idea of taking matters into your own hands. Anyway, I'll stop now because my time's up.
Well, thank you for taking time to listen. I got a question, but it was just a kind statement. Thank you for the good talk, everybody. Thank you for that nice comment. Are there any other questions that people might have in our talk? I see that actually 2 have raised hands. So let me see if I can identify these. We have Jim Sparks and Jacob Arnoff. So what I'm going to do is, Jim, I'm going to bring you on and allow you to kind of address the group. Let's see how we're doing on time. Yeah, we're doing great. And then Jacob, I'll bring you on and unmute yourself, Jim, so that you can ask the question. I presume that you raised your hand, so you want to ask a question.
Don't the conference still support the birth connection?
Yeah, that's the question. Does the conference still support the birth connection? Good question. Michael, could you answer that for us, please? And make sure you unmute, my brother.
The answer is yes, we do. I just don't know what the status of the birth connection is right now. After our last fundraiser, there was some question about the viability of the ministry. So, and then there was a number of other things happening with the lady that runs it, the director. And so it's, I am mortified to not be able to answer that question directly. But yes, we still support it, but I'm not sure what the status of it is right now.
Well, I'll just say this real quick, Jim. The conference is still committed, and we haven't heard otherwise, sending them money. So in that regard, we do. It's part of our budget. And thank you, Mike, for sharing that. We might need to look at other ways to continue our strong support of groups that advocate for pro-life, to stop abortion and give families, mothers, an opportunity to find alternatives to abortion that are healthy and well supported, which was the purpose of the birth connection. So that's really good. Jacob has a question, and Jacob has several good ones. I'm going to pull you up, and hopefully you'll be able to unmute and
yes.
share your thoughts, my friend.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Right on. I just wanted to double check with, because I know I asked earlier if there was any New Testament scriptures, and the one that I've been thinking about is Romans chapter 1. It doesn't directly say abortion, but it does bring up the reprobate mind. Are these doctors that are aborting these babies, are they under that same reprobate mind? It's something that I was thinking. So that's kind of like my question is like, is it a reprobate mind that they're under, that this issue is even happening with the abortion?
Gotcha. Well, I'll let Mike, you're getting all the questions tonight, but Sam or Henry, if either of you would like to go ahead and also chip in terms of biblical support for the Free Methodist view that every life is sacred and that abortion, in most circumstances, is morally unconscionable.
So the answer to your question, Jacob, is that there are very few scriptures and there are no scriptures that specifically address abortion. The closest we could come maybe is in Luke, when I've forgotten her name, Mary's cousin. when she came to Mary and Mary was pregnant with Jesus, and she said that the baby leaped in my womb, and the word for baby brephos there is the same word that they use for the baby Jesus in the manger. That's kind of an induction, I guess, or a deduction. So there are a few Old Testament scriptures that talk about how you knew me in the womb. I think that there's one there, and that but really to find a scripture that specifically addresses abortion, don't think you're going to find anything. But I'm going to read this paragraph from Beckwith. He says, we can conclude that just as the Bible does not forbid murdering people with submachine guns, the Bible does not forbid abortion. But since one can infer that murdering persons with submachine guns is wrong from the fact that the Bible forbids murdering in general, one can also infer that the Bible teaches that abortion is not justified from the fact that the Bible refers to unborn human beings as persons and forbids the murdering of persons in general. He goes on to talk about, if we relied on the specific instances of the Bible forbidding things, we would have to sanction slavery because it doesn't specifically say anything. We would have to sanction nuclear warfare because it doesn't specifically address that, or computer vandalism because it doesn't specifically address that. But what we do is we infer from the Bible passages. Now, in my paper, under the reproductive part, I talk about Adam being created out of the dust of the earth. And at that moment, he was unique in all of creation. And then God created Eve out of the rib of Adam. And she was unique in all of creation. When they reproduced, their offspring were unique in all of creation. And my feeling, and I submit to you, that when the 23 chromosomes of the male join with the 23 chromosomes of the female at conception, that divine creative moment is repeated and a unique human person is created. One of the Scott Klusendorf and Stephanie Gray both used the example of a Polaroid picture. Some of you aren't old enough to remember those. But a Polaroid picture would come out of the camera and just be a smudge of gray and brown. And it would take a while, a minute or two, sometimes 3 minutes, for that picture to develop. But all of the elements of that picture were present on that plate, that film. And same thing in the womb. All of the elements that make a person human are present when those 23 chromosomes meet up with those other 23 chromosomes, and they create a divine and unique person within the womb, just not fully developed.